we are far ahead of where I thought we would be. Listening to the public disclosure of Galp, the operator, they had initially contemplated the second campaign kicking off, kind of around the end of November, completing the first location, and then largely going into a bit of a quarter pause while further analytical information was done to underpin the exploration locations, which were expected to be next.
All right, welcome back inside our proactive newsroom. And joining me now is Robert Bose. He's the CEO of Sintana Energy. And Robert, good to see you again. How are you?
Very well, thanks, Steve. Very well. Thank you for having me back, and Happy New Year to you and all your viewers.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you as well. And the company out with a little news just before New Year's, talking about, in essence, PEL 83, which we've talked about in the past. So why don't we take a step back? Let's get everyone up to date on PEL 83 and really what this news release was about.
Sure, absolutely. So as your viewers may recall, PEL 83 is one of the licenses that we maintain an indirect interest in, located in Namibia's Orange Basin. It's operated by Galp Energia of Portugal. Galp kicked off a two-well campaign. It was the inaugural exploration campaign on PEL 83 and around U.S. Thanksgiving of last year. The results of that two-well campaign were announced sort of in early Q2. They included the discovery of multiple columns of light oil and high-quality sands in multiple reservoirs. They included appraisal of certain of those reservoirs, as well as a drill stem test, all of that ultimately resulting in an estimate of approximately 10 billion barrels of original oil in place found, and a drill stem test which flowed at an infrastructure constrained 14,000 barrels a day. So just a tremendous outcome for the initial campaign on PEL 83. It roughly doubled the amount of resources that have been discovered in Namibia just in a single campaign. So that's kind of how we started the year. And as you allude to, the press release that we had out just before the end of last year was the fourth of four press releases providing updates on the second campaign on PEL 83. That was contemplated to be comprised of 4 wells in total. 2 exploration wells and 2 appraisal locations. And around October the 24th, we announced that the first well, an appraisal well, was spud. I believe roughly a month later, we announced a successful appraisal of the AVO-10 discovery, approximately 8 kilometers away from the initial discovery. So just a fantastic demonstration of the scale. Further confirmation of very high quality reservoirs, good permeability, good porosity. And as a result of the success there, the operator and the joint venture chose to accelerate the balance of the campaign. They spud a second appraisal well, focusing on another one of the discoveries from the first campaign, the 2A location. Roughly a week later, we announced just before New Year's that that appraisal location was as well a success, confirming the intersection with 2 hydrocarbon columns, both in a discovery from the first campaign as well as a new reservoir at AVO-4. And just given the level of progress and success, the joint venture determined that it would be a good move to accelerate the exploration location. So the rig moved to a location kind of on the southeast corner of the Mopane complex. It's focused on 2 very large targets called AVO-10 and 13. That well was spud just yesterday, and so we would expect going into the new year results from that location over the next, call it, kind of couple of months, so certainly by the end of Q1. And that will continue to, I think, demonstrate the sheer kind of scale and opportunity that we are seeing in the Mopane complex. So, last year was just a hugely foundational year for the company, underpinned in large part by the progress on PEL 83. And we're sort of starting off in a very exciting way for 2025 as well.
Robert, are you where you hope to be at the end of 2024 and obviously the beginning of 2025? Is this where you were expecting to be, or are you suggesting that just because of the success you've been able to accelerate everyone and are far ahead to where you thought you would be?
Yeah, I mean, we are far ahead of where I thought we would be. Listening to the public disclosure of Galp, the operator, they had initially contemplated the second campaign kicking off, kind of around the end of November, completing the first location, and then largely going into a bit of a quarter pause while further analytical information was done to underpin the exploration locations, which were expected to be next. And the next 3 wells of that 4-well campaign were not contemplated to begin until sometime in Q2 and run through Q3. And, by the looks of things, we'll certainly be through 3 of 4 wells before we hit Q1. So we are far ahead of where we were, and that is underpinned by, not only progress in terms of the results, but the continuing demonstration and understanding of the geologic model. I think is giving the joint venture huge confidence in terms of moving ahead quickly. So, certainly much farther ahead than we were expecting to be at the end of the year and going into the new year.
Yeah, that's obviously one part of the company. What can people expect in 2025? You mentioned this is going to be a priority, but I'm sure you have others as well.
Yeah, I mean, sort of equally as exciting is Pell 90. It's located right next door to Pell 83. Your viewers may recall when we initially entered into this transaction in Namibia, that license was operated by Tullow. By the time we closed, they had left, and we told the market that we would be looking to farm out that license. And in October, I believe, of 2022, we were just absolutely thrilled to welcome Chevron back to Namibia after a multi-decade absence. And, they have been just absolutely fantastic partners to us, specifically on Pell 90. They completed a nearly $40 million 3D seismic shoot over the entire block to really sort of largely define and underpin a basin-wide geologic model. They have kicked off the initial exploration campaign on Pell 90. They spud the first well. It's called the Kapana 1 just around Christmas time. So equally exciting, a new license, different operator in the same heart of the basin position. So, an opportunity for just an entirely new leg of value. And as we would expect kind of results from that initial well sometime by the end of the quarter. So really, really exciting. And as well on Pell 90, it's worth noting that we announced, I believe it was December the 16th, that Qatar Energy had joined the joint venture on Pell 90, farming into that license as a 27.5% working interest owner. Your viewers may recall they are also in the licenses that sit directly south of this that are operated variously by Shell and Total. So they bring to the table some of the best in basin understanding, and having them join us in this license is, I think, just another corroboration of the quality of the portfolio as well as the opportunity. So that is another quote unquote main event for the next few months, Steve. So definitely a lot going on, and the balance of the portfolio, we would expect some, progress towards the back end of the year. But I think in the near term, it's really the progress on Pell 90 and Pell 83 with these drilling campaigns that are currently in progress. That's really going to kind of drive what happens for us in the near term.
Yeah, sounds like it's going to be an exciting one for sure. Robert, thanks so much. Great to see you again. I appreciate the update, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks for having me back, Steve. I really appreciate it.
All right, Robert Bose, the CEO of Sintana Energy.